Hey guys, it's been a while. I wanted to sit down and talk a little bit about Paper Birds because there's been some updates, and also, I guess, talk a little bit about EMDR. And I can't exactly remember where I left off with either of those things, but I know it's been about 2 months, but if there is some overlap, sorry. Yeah, and also my voice sounds kind of raspy right now. I don't know why. My voice gets like that when I'm tired. And I guess I'm tired right now. So, yeah. But I guess I'll start with Paper Birds because that's why I started these vlogs in the first place. The biggest update with Paper Birds is we had a B-roll day like a couple weeks back that was actually anticipated to be like the last day of B-roll for Paper Birds. I think I'll be filming some more stuff here and there over the next couple of weeks. I actually already have, like, I filmed some shots in the woods a couple weekends ago, and so yeah, but a couple weeks back Tyler and Spencer came out, and I knew them from school. They were in my major, and they helped me film some stuff for Paper Birds that I couldn't film by myself, and that was really cool, and we had a really good time, and you probably saw that based on the bloopers that we put together. It was very funny. I mean, maybe not the video itself, but being there was funny. But yeah, that was cool. And I think I've been working on the film. I have another, not like a big update, but for me it was like something that I didn't even really consider, and now I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna do this now. But with Paper Birds, I've been editing it, and my friend texted me, sorry. Abby, if you're watching this, it's funny because they will be. Anyways, shit, what was I saying? Shit, Paper Birds, yeah. Oh yeah, I've been editing it, and it's coming along. I think I'm going to, this is what I was gonna say, but I think I'm going to connect back with Marcus Lewis and do kind of like, because in the film, a part of the film is making the film, so which has been very interesting to navigate. But as you may have seen, at least from the if you've seen the first half of the film, or if you've seen the clips that I've shared on here, you'll see that Marcus Lewis is featured, his voices, and then there's like a picture of him, and I think I explained that before, why that was. It was because I had to use his pre-interview, the audio from his pre-interview, because I didn't have the video, the interview that we originally anticipated on using for Paper Birds, like that we had filmed and everything, didn't pan out, simply, or at least it didn't pan out for the format that it was in. But yeah, I lost my train of thought again while going on that tangent. But yeah, so anyways, he's in the film, and I was thinking it would kind of make sense to bring things full circle and do like almost like a behind the scenes of me reconnecting with Marcus Lewis, and this time, instead of it just being like a picture of his face, it would be some footage of like us having a Zoom call interspersed with his like screen recording of like him talking. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. I honestly I wish I could just be done with the film, but that's not, like, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm in this far, I should, you know, do this the right way. So what was I gonna say? And that ties into my next point, because as I've been editing it, I'm noticing like, okay, I've been able to pick up a lot more on like some awkward jump cuts and like audio that's not super refined, and so I'm thinking about hiring an editor to just kind of go through and clean it up. I don't know what that looks like because I've never done that before, but I guess I'm gonna figure it out, because yeah, again, it's like I've spent so much time on this project, might as well do it right. As far as what I'm actually gonna do with the film, I'm still thinking about I'm still planning on submitting to film festivals. I've looked into it a little bit, but not a ton, because I didn't want to like jump ahead. And the other thing, this is something I did want to talk about as far as like making it public goes. It's hard because it all started as like wanting to make a resource for people who were like going through what I was going through, and I think because of that, I'm still like, regardless, probably just gonna end up putting it out there. But there is, like, the more I think about it, there's like more hesitancy, and I don't know. I think I want to get to a place. There might be a little bit of a delay between when I finish the film and when I submit to festivals, if I do end up doing that, and when I actually like put it out into the world for like anyone to see, just because I don't want to like, I feel like it's probably going to like present some challenges, and so that's just something that I don't really want to take on right now, or even honestly think a ton about taking on right now. So that's kind of been, I've put a pin in that at the moment. But yeah, I guess that's everything for the film side of the things. But one thing, this is related to the film, I guess, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the CEU, I think I have. I feel like I've talked about this before, but Mona, who I met at NCUR and who invited me to present at TCC in the fall, we are working on putting together a CEU with another EMDR specialist. I mean, I phrase that weird. Mona and I aren't EMDR specialists, but because I'm in EMDR, that's why I said another. But anyways, we're working on doing that, and that's gonna be, forget the exact date, but it's, I think, October. And that's gonna be like a 3-hour presentation that's for professionals in the mental health field, from like therapists to counselors to psychiatrists to psychologists, like a big mix of people. And so that is, I'm really excited for that, because, and I know that I've said this before, but like working on the film in a lot of ways has been, it's been fun, and it's been really like creatively interesting and a great outlet in a lot of ways, but it's also been pretty triggering at times. And so like being able to advocate for stuff like directly in the form of education, like educating the people who would be treating people like me, is super healing. Like that's what I wanted Paper Birds to be, like that feeling, and so to get it through this is really cool. So yeah, that's something that I'm super excited for, and I think that is everything as far as Paper Birds goes. So yeah, not a ton, just kind of like chipping away at stuff, and have been spending some weekends editing. And I did get some really, I know I posted a film reel recently, and that was fun. But yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did get some B-roll a couple, like 2 weekends ago, in the woods, which I was very proud of. I thought it looked cool. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's Paper Bird stuff. As far as EMDR goes, again, I'm not really sure where I left off, but actually, I don't know that. I was gonna say, I think I left off before I started reprocessing the box trauma, which if I didn't, then that's something that I started. Yeah, end of March, we like first jumped into the box trauma, and then I ended up actually, and again, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but I took a week off from work because in the beginning of March, like middle to the beginning of March, I had like a really big flashback, and I was like, oh, I need to take a break. And so my work thankfully let me take a break, but it didn't end up being as relaxing as I was hoping, because my grandfather got sick and unfortunately passed away like while I was down. I went to Florida, and that was, I don't know how to talk about it without, yeah, that was interesting. I mean, it was sad, but it was really interesting because I've never experienced, like, I've never lost anyone close to me, and even though I, like, being in Pennsylvania, I and like my family was not as close to my grandfather as my family in Florida was, but like that was still the closest person that I've lost. And I think I've mentioned this in the vlogs this past year because it's something that popped up when I started EMDR, was just like the fear of grief, like an intense fear of grief. And so I kind of got to like, I don't know, again, it sounds weird to talk about it without like, I don't want to make his death about me because it's not, but like I handled things a lot better than I thought I was going to, and it allowed me to see that like grief and trauma were separate things, and like grief is a part of trauma, but not every not every grieving process or loss is traumatic, and that was like a really important distinction for me to come to, or realization for me to come to, just because I think like in my trauma brain I thought that grief and trauma were like the same thing, and so I thought I would have to like feel all of that stuff again. And not only did I think it was the same thing, I thought it was worse. And so kind of being able to experience grief as like a natural part of life, because my grandfather, I mean, it was pretty sudden, but he also had some health complications, so it wasn't like a shock per se, and he did live like a really full, long life, but yeah, that was just something that happened that was interesting, and that was too like a marker of the growth that I've had over this past year, because I think if that was something that happened like a year ago, even 6 months ago, I don't think I would have handled things as well as I did. But yeah, that was that. But yeah, I went on vacation, and that was the other thing too. Was nice that I was down there during like his last couple days, even though we didn't know it at the time, because we got to like connect, and that was really special. But yeah, I came back, but weirdly when I came back, I actually started doing, because that was like the very end of March, and April I actually had a really good month, and May I've been having a really good month, so I've been doing well, actually, like pretty well. Again, I know it probably doesn't seem that way because I'm a little somber right now, or I sound somber rather, I don't feel that way, but yeah, I forget, I was gonna go somewhere with that, but I don't remember where. Shoot, what else is there? Oh, the box trauma. Yeah, so we started reprocessing the box trauma, which was, you know what, I think that's where like the switch flipped, because like as soon as I knew I was getting into that, like it just brought so much relief, I think, because I was like, oh, it's gonna be over soon. And I think it felt like the work that I was doing, like I was suddenly gonna get like tangible results, even though, sorry, I have been having that like over the past year, but to start to approach the thing that I'm actually in therapy for, I was like, oh, thank God, finally. And I think since that, I've experienced like something is released, and so that's why I've been feeling a lot better. But yeah, I honestly struggle to remember what exactly happened in those sessions, not because I like blocked it out, I just can't remember. But we didn't end up, I'm still running into actually, this is a great lead-in. I didn't know I was going to talk about this, but this is a great lead-in. I've been running into like a block with trying to access that memory, which isn't a shocker, but it was still pretty, like, it was a bummer, because I was like, oh, like I just want to be done this. And that's another thing too, like a niche facet of this experience, like with delayed recall and people who don't really remember their trauma, it kind of feels like your body is keeping secrets from you, which isn't fair. There's like this like feeling of betrayal, and it's not as bad now as it was in the fall of 2020, because back then I was very much at war with myself, and now I like understand the science behind it, and I can appreciate that it's something in my brain that's like trying to keep me safe. But it was just kind of like, shit, like what if I got up to this point just to not be able to reprocess that? And thankfully though, like with me like doing well, and I can actually, another thing that's very important to note is like I'm starting to feel safe in my body, like I can experience safety, and it's so different from living in a traumatized state. Like it's very, and now when I am like triggered, I'm like, oh, this is not my baseline. Like I don't go into this, because I used to, like I've said before, like ping pong back between doing well and then just kind of like spiraling out, so to speak, and not being able to tell which one was like what normality was. And now that I've found that, because I've been able to like spend bouts of time in that feeling of safety, I'm able to be like, oh, kind of step back when I'm feeling heightened and just be like, oh, okay, this will pass, like it's gonna be okay. It still sucks, but it'll pass. But which is actually another good tie into what I was gonna say. Today I got a med card, which hopefully my parents aren't watching this. They're not, but yeah, so that is for medical marijuana because it's something that I've been thinking about for a while, but I didn't really have a means to, or not a means, but a reason rather to like pull the trigger on that, just because I was like, well, I don't really need it per se. But then I was talking to, it's gonna sound bad, but my psychiatrist was on board. I was talking to my psychiatrist, and being high has obviously like helped me relax, and it's helped me sleep before when I have been high, but and it's not something I do often, it's just like a social thing, but it also helps me, like I feel like when I'm really high I feel like I'm in the same frequency that like the trauma happened in, if that makes sense, and there's a reason for that. I'll try and find, that would be a good thing to share on the Project Paperbirds subreddit and Instagram, because that's really interesting. I think it needs to be talked about more, but there is a reason for that. And I remember like it would have been like 2.5 years ago when I was super high, and I like tried to tap into that memory, and I was so close, and like I was actually there in the moment, but then I was so overwhelmed with fear that I just like pulled myself out of it. Ended up having a flashback, which my friend was there to witness. I felt bad about that. I still kind of do, but yeah, so anyways, I was like, I feel like if I could get really high and tap into that, maybe I could access that memory and those emotions and subsequently reprocess them. And so I kind of like told that to my psychiatrist in passing, and he was like, yeah, that's interesting, you should look into that. And I was surprised when he said that, because I thought he was gonna be like, no, don't do that, that's bad. But he didn't, and he kind of gave me his blessing to get a med card, and he actually gave me the place of, because he doesn't do it personally, but he gave me the place of somewhere that does. And I had an appointment with them today. And then I told my therapist too, and I thought she was gonna be like, don't do that, that's dangerous. And she was like, yeah, no. But she encouraged me. She was like, you should work with someone who, because there's people, I guess, that specialize in that. And she was like, you should work with someone who like has training in that. And if you want to, go right ahead. So maybe. I really don't want to leave my therapist, even if it's like temporarily. I love my therapist. She's great. And I say that a lot. But what am I saying, guys? I'm sorry, these are so boring. If you sit through this, deserve a medal. But also, I was gonna talk about this, but it didn't come up, but it's coming up now. One thing that I have been doing, going back to feeling safe, is like getting into, because I've been trying to learn how to rest. And so I have spent more days like rotting in my bed, so to speak, but like in a good, intentional way. I've been watching TV more, like getting into TV shows. I watched Baby Reindeer, which was so good. It was such a good representation of trauma, like the nuance of it, and it did such a great job of like, because I feel like things like media representations of a lot of the time about anything, but especially with trauma, like there's a lot of things painted in like black and white and stereotypical ways, and I just loved the way that he captured everything, and like the way that people who like showing that like people who are, you know, victims of trauma or of, you know, abuse, they often like will find themselves in those situations again and again, and it's not because they're consciously choosing that, it's because like that's part of what the abuse does, you know. And it was really cool to see that. Cool sounds like a wrong word, but to see that on screen I think was really important, and opened up a lot of great conversations, and also I think alleviated some guilt that people feel, because when he was doing that stuff, I mean, I haven't experienced that to that degree. I'm thankful that like I've been able to stay out of harmful relationships for the most part. Like that's not kind of a facet of trauma that I've experienced a lot, but it is something like that repeated behavior of kind of like putting yourself in those situations that you know are harmful, but you're looking for like this dopamine hit that never really comes. and that is something that I've done, and it made me feel less guilty about that. So it's a cool show. But anyways, I've been getting into different hobbies. I bought a butter churner, learned how to churn butter. It's very fun. I've been wanting to do that for years. And I also started to learn, I use that word very loosely because I am not really learning, I'm just kind of like fucking around and finding out. But I bought a whittling kit, and this is what I started with. They gave me a couple of different blocks, but they gave me a lot of these, which I thought was kind of like, come on, like this, what are you gonna make out of this? But they gave me one of these, and I started making a fish. It was supposed to be a dolphin, but it's very disproportional. And yeah, it looks really bad, I know. But I'm trying so hard. It's so much harder than I thought it was gonna be, but I don't know. It's my first thing. I think it's decent for my first try. But yeah, now I don't know what I was saying at all. 1 second, guys. But yeah, so thinking about doing that. Like I'm gonna see if I can like get high in my own time and try and access those memories. Ideally, I would love to like do some kind of study, because I'm all for utilizing your experiences for the greater good. And also, if it's free therapy, that's even better. But I don't know if that's gonna happen, because a lot of times there's like a long vetting process, and it's very like constricting as far as who's actually eligible, and a lot of the times there's like a long wait period, so probably not gonna end up doing that. But I think I'm gonna try exploring accessing that memory in my own time, because I do feel safe enough to do that. Like I feel enough in my body, and I trust my ability to ground myself to try and do something like that. So I don't recommend it. I would not, like if someone were in my situation that I knew, I would tell them to not do that. But I don't know. I'm gonna try it. So yeah, I think that's everything as far as EMDR goes. Personally, is there anything else? I think I already touched on it because I was going to talk about whittling and churning butter. But yeah. Oh, one thing that's cool is now I can actually like look more towards the future. And actually, now I'm remembering was one big thing that I wanted to talk about that I forgot. But I've been, along with like getting into hobbies again, I started to get back more into like creative writing, which I did as a kid a lot, and they were all really bad stories about like fairies and stuff. But I guess I did kind of a little bit in high school too, but it was because I was trying to write stats, which for those of you who don't know, I wrote a book when I was 19 called 17 Times Around the Sun, and I just use the acronym stats because it's a mouthful to say. But I was trying to write that book in high school, and so there was like some kind of creative writing in there. But as far as like what a lot of my recent work is, and like the bulk of what I do is like documentary, like literary journalism style. And so yeah, creative writing is not my strong suit, or at least I don't think that it is. And also it just feels very intimate, which is funny, which is ironic, because I like everything I do was kind of like spilling my guts on an operating table. But something about creative writing, like it makes me feel the same way that like a cat bringing their owner a dead mouse feels. Like I just feel so exposed and like stupid. But I recently started, because I just like couldn't get it out of my head, I started a second book, which I know that you're not supposed to talk about the things that you want to do, because then like you don't end up doing them, but fuck it, because there's something I want to share. I started a second book to kind of explore the different facets of my experience the past couple of years, like with PTSD and specifically delayed recall. And the book not metaphorical, but I don't know, the tentative plan for the book, and this is something that has been in my head for a while, and of course, like as someone who spends a lot of time in their head, there's always like stuff bouncing around, but sometimes like your brain just like keeps going back to something over and over again, and like the story starts to play out. And this was one of those things, and that's when I was like, okay, I need to start writing this down. And so it's two guys. They're both, everyone in the book is like in their mid-20s, early to mid-20s, and there's like a bunch of different characters that I want to explore, which stats I didn't really do that as much because it's supposed to be written through, I mean, one, it wasn't a skilled writer, but it's supposed to be written through like the point of view of a 17-year-old, and so in keeping with that, she's not really focused too much on like the depth of other people because she's so caught up with herself. But this is different, this book, because it's written in third person, which has been really cool, and in present tense, which has been like cool to navigate, because stats was first person, it was past tense, so like direct opposite. But the book that I'm working on now is there's like two guys. One of them, and it takes place in Boston because I wanted to move to Boston. One of them is like very successful on paper, like has a lot going for him, but he's like dealing with the fallout of a childhood trauma that resurfaced, and he can't figure out why he's not happy. And so it follows his experience of like unpacking that and going to EMDR, because I want to highlight EMDR as a resource. And it's also supposed to too, like, I want to put a lot of like science in the book, and in a way that feels natural, but like explain the brain and why it does the things that it does, and capture all like the niche like elements of my experience with delayed recall and like somatic memories. So that is his storyline. And then there's like two main protagonists though, like that guy, the first guy, his name's Joe. His real name is Julian, and his one nickname growing up is Jude, but his nickname that he goes from college onwards is Joe. And so that's Joe. And then Mickey, which is short for Michelangelo, which sounds stupid, but he is a little bit younger, like 2 years younger than Joe, and he's actually dead. The book starts out with him being dead, but he can't, and I'm still kind of working on the world building, but he can't move on to the afterlife until his soul is like connected to Joe for some reason, even though they didn't know each other in during when Mickey was alive. And so he has to like help Joe with whatever he has to help with. They don't really know, they're trying to figure it out, so he can move on. And there's also like, in the book I try to be funny with the dynamic, because I think like mixing trauma and humor, and I don't mean that in like a cringe way where like people are like, my trauma made me funny, but like, I don't know, I'm trying to weave the two together because I think they go hand in hand, you know, like anything in life. And also too, I think it's especially important to have humor and stuff like that because it is heavy. But yeah, so that's the dynamic there. And what's his name? Mickey has a soul guide, because everyone who is navigating that in between, which not everybody has to do that. It's just people who had like a kind of sudden death, or died before their time, so to speak, has a soul guide. And Mickey's soul guide is Clora. And Clora, she died. All the soul guides, the reason that they are soul guides is because like they have some innate qualities that would make them good soul guides, if that makes sense. And one of them is like wisdom and emotional maturity and being well balanced. But another big factor into why they become soul guides is because they had a really sudden, often very traumatic death. And so it's much harder for them to move on and let go. And so knowing this, like, that's why they were soul guides, because like whatever, I don't know, it's never really established what is out there, if there's like a god or something, but like whatever is the higher power at play knows like, hey, these people are not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, so that's why they're going to be soul guide. And I wrote just rambling, I'm just yapping. So I've been working on that, and I've been kind of like writing out of order, which I've never done before. And I wrote a chapter, which right now is called Chapter X. Well, it does have a title, but it's Chapter X because I don't know where it's gonna fall. But like I said, the whole book is in third person, but that book, the book that explores Clora's backstory, is actually written in first person. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to use her character to explore grief and like my struggle to move on, Even though this is something I feel like I don't struggle with as much as I used to. But I remember when, I think it was 2021, when life started to get good again. I was doing well, even though I was still dealing with like a lot of symptoms of PTSD. And I remember actually being kind of angry that I was getting better, because it felt like, that's it? Like, I'm just gonna move on now? Like, what? Like, it just felt, like I really struggled to come to terms with the senselessness of it all. And I wrote this poem, which might have been in 2021. If not, it was definitely in 2022, because it was a while ago. And it was called In Memoriam of Me, which is what that chapter is going to be called, once I have a number. And it was basically just a poem about like me, kind of a part of me not wanting to move on, just because it felt like I didn't want to make peace with the senselessness. Like, it just didn't feel like a fair thing to do to myself, because I felt like someone had to be there to witness my grief and my inability to move on in the way that this thing had just like blown up my life. Like, I couldn't let that go. And so I used that chapter to explore that. And then there's some other things, like different emotional caveats that I explore in that too, but that was like the main thing. And the reason I'm sharing all this is because I wanted to share that. I think I'm gonna post it on my blog, sorry, because I have a blog too. I don't really use it that much. I just use it to like share stories, or like the stories that I do for work, or photos and stuff. But it's on my website, and I'm going to type that up with a little bit of context and share that, because again, I don't do a lot of creative writing, but I was really proud of this piece, or this chapter, and I think it actually kind of stands alone well, because it is like a self-contained story. And, or you know, I'll just say this for the context of the blog post, but yeah, I'm excited to share that, because I don't really, like, it has been so freeing to write creatively about that experience. It's like kind of everything that I wanted Paper Birds to be, like educating and also being an emotional release, whereas Paper Birds was more just like educating but also re-traumatizing myself. So yeah, and all the characters in that book are kind of, I know it's kind of cringe when authors do like stand-ins for themselves, if that's the, I know there's a word for it, I don't know if that's it, but for me it's not like I'm so cool and I wanna be witnessed in this world. It's more so like I've used characters to help me understand myself better and to like work through emotions, and that has been very healing. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know, maybe, I don't know if I feel like I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx it, but yeah, I guess I'll just end with that. I'm having a lot of fun working on that. Like, it's been very healing, and I want to share that chapter because I think it could probably resonate with a lot of people, because it's always the stuff that I don't really expect to resonate with people that does. But yeah, but I think that's everything. I'm sorry for rambling, and hopefully the next time I film a vlog, it'll be a little bit more concise, and I'll be a little closer to finishing Paper Birds. Better yet, it'll be done. Actually, I just realized that I was going to talk about a whole other thing, like an emotional thing I've been dealing with, and I had this whole, what's it called? Like, I don't know, visual aid to go along, but I'm just going to call it a night. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and check out the link in the description for that, that chapter. But yeah, that's it. Goodbye.